I am Lexi from Lexi Rose Reads, and today I am coming at you with my 10 top books from 2023. We do have some critters floating around. They're very obsessed with me this morning for some reason. Usually Shelby's like not all over me, but Shelby's been floating around here. Just off view of the camera. She was just behind me a little bit ago, but Shelby is floating around here this morning. You may see a tail or a little head pop in. Isn't that right, ma'am? Don't bite me. That's rude. So book one on my best books of 2023 is The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. And in this one, we follow Felicity, aka Fizzy, as she is on a dating show, and the dating show is that they take the soulmate equation from like the first book in the series, which I did not read because I did not know this was like a spin-off of that, like a duology, but you don't have to read the first one. I think it's common in romance books where like you don't have to read them in order to understand what's happening. But in the first one, they made up like the soulmate equation to help you find your perfect soulmate. And in this one, Fizzy has already taken the test in the past because she's like friends with the maker of it. And she like is going on all these dates with this dating show for these people who would be her perfect match based on like different things. And there's some like lower tier matches, and then there's like some higher tier matches. But along the way, she ends up falling in love with the show's producer. And like they're trying to fight their feelings because like she can't pick him because he's not a contestant on the show. But they go through this whole show, and through the process they fall in love. And spoiler alert, they end up together. Like that happens in all romance books. So if they don't get together in the end, like it's a bad romance book, right? So they end up falling in love, and it's amazing. I love Fizzy and Connor's relationship, and she's super good with Connor's kids, which I think would probably be high on his list of priorities for finding someone to date. But overall, I like had such an enjoyable time with this one, which is a complete 180 from the other Christina Lauren book I read this year, which was one of my worst books of the year, but I loved it so much. My next book on this list is Murder at the Mayfair Hotel by C.J. Archer. And this one is a historical cozy mystery. So I found this one just like on Nook. I have like the digital copy of it. And we follow our young Cleopatra Fox after the death of her grandparents. Her parents died when she was very young, so she was living with her grandparents, and her grandparents have passed away. And it is 1899, and in the time frame, as you know, it is very unacceptable for a young woman of like early 20s to be living by herself unmarried. So she goes to live with her estranged cousins and aunt and uncle, who her uncle owns this beautiful high-class hotel in London. And she's from like the Cambridge area. So she goes out there, and it's a completely different world. She was raised more lower class, and her uncle has quite a bit of money, so he's quite upper class. So it's quite the difference of expected. She's like expected to be like a socialite, which isn't what she wants to do. In Cambridge, she was going to universities, taking lectures, meeting people all the time, and learning, like just getting an education. But she's not allowed to do that in London because that's not what the family does. That's not seen as acceptable for women to do. So she's like toiling away in this hotel all day, and on Christmas Eve, a murder takes place in the hotel. And the police just have their one suspect. Like it was, you know, that man. It was the man who brought her hot chocolate the night before. He obviously killed her. And something just seems off about it to Cleo. So Cleo takes it upon herself to start investigating the murder, and you get some hotel employees pulled into the mix, but she ends up solving the murder. She does better than Scotland Yard at solving this murder, and she has to convince Scotland Yard to, you know, follow up on the information that she found to actually find the true murderer. Which, you know, they do succeed in time for the New Year's Eve ball that's going to take place. Well, they solve it at the New Year's Eve ball. So we go into the new year with a murder solved. I really like this one. Like all the books on this list, for some reason, I don't own any copies of like almost any of the books I've read on this list. Like I got most of them from the library. So I do own this one, but I own it in digital form, which makes it a little bit harder to show you the book. So enjoy the pictures I've been putting up. Book 3 on this list is Be My Ghost by Carol J. Perry. This is another cozy mystery. This is a paranormal one. And in this one, we follow our main character as she just lost her job in New York at some department store. And we follow her as she moves to Florida, as she, for some reason, has inherited a bed and breakfast from someone she's never met. And we don't quite know why she's inherited this bed and breakfast, but she's going down to live there with her dog, Finn. I love Finn the most. Like, he's a golden retriever. He's my favorite character in the book, let's just admit this. And when she moves into the bed and breakfast, she takes over the old owner's suite that's at the top floor, like the penthouse almost. Except for there's only like 3 floors, you know, because it's a bed and breakfast. So she takes over this, and and literally her first night there has been a murder. A young middle-aged man, she just finds him what appears to be asleep in one of the lounging chairs. And when she touches him, he falls over and he's dead. And clearly when a man in his 30s dies, that's very suspicious, and usually an autopsy is performed. And when it is, they found drugs in his system that would have killed him. And it's not like a common like street drug that they found. Like, it was like a poison that they found in him. So an investigation is launched, and for some reason the police are very focused on our MC here, that she must have been the murderer, and really she is being framed. So there's lots of evidence. They find like the cup that was used, like the brandy that was used, or gin, or whatever it was. I can't remember what drink it was drinking, because I'm not very good with alcohol. But they found that bottle in her suite, and you know, there's all this little clues that are leading them anywhere but where the true murderer is. He was also a paranormal investigator, because the bed and breakfast is haunted. So with the help of the ghost, because the ghosts introduced themselves to our new owner, they solve the murder, but they have to convince the police to look elsewhere because she's being framed by the perpetrators. I had an enjoyable time. I really like paranormal cozy mysteries. Like, I don't know what it was, but late in 2022, I got really obsessed with paranormal mysteries, which is a hint for a vlog series that's coming up here, guys. I think the first one's gonna go up in February though. The next one is 5 Survived by Holly Jackson. I did this one as part of the Read It in 8 Hours challenge. And I think it was Brittany, and I can't remember who else was hosting it. But I made a vlog about this a while ago. I'll go ahead and link that here up at the top. But I read the book in 8 hours, and I highly recommend that this is the way you must read this book. You must binge read this book because it's sectioned in hours, and it makes it all the better because our main characters are like stranded in the woods and someone is hunting them. He's shooting them. And we don't really know what the reason is until the end of the book. But it's so high intense. Like, Holly Jackson just does a phenomenal job of this. So if you like The Good Girl's Guide to Murder, you'll like this one. And when I say that, if you didn't like the last one, and Holly Jackson's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, As Good as Dead, I don't blame you. I would recommend finishing that series because it does end on like a complete note. But getting there, I was not very fond of. But digression. 5 Survive I was like screaming at the end of the book, like, oh my god. I had so much fun reading this one. It's why it made a top tier list. And I was busy like moving when I read this book too. Like, instead of moving my stuff, I sat there and read this book. I was like, I have to know what happens. The next one I have on this is A Promised Land by Barack Obama. So this is volume 1. I don't think volume 2 is out yet, but President Obama has summarized his time, like leading up to his presidential election and that spiel, and it's like encompasses the first few years of his presidency. This is a chunker. This is over 800 pages. I want to warn you, but if you can get the audiobook, it is phenomenal. It's read by him himself, but I will tell you, you're gonna need to slow it down. Like, I typically listen to books at 3 times speed. I could not go faster than 2 because this man talks so fast. Like, you know, all the other book narrators are like, Obama was like, so I had to slow it down, but it was such a great summary. And I'm a history nerd, so him summarizing what happened, especially because while I was like alive while this was all going on, I don't remember it because, you know, when he got elected in the office, I was in 3rd grade. 3rd or 4th grade. You know, like, I wasn't paying attention. What 3rd or 4th grader pays attention to that kind of stuff? So I like the summary of it, and it does go over the recession of 2008, which I vaguely remember, like, my parents' discussions on it, but I didn't fully understand what was happening at the time. So going back and like hearing everything that like Congress was doing there during that time was very interesting and informative. So I really did enjoy this one, and like I said, it does go up through the years leading up, so you also get to see a little bit of Barack's and Michelle's relationship start. And I also did enjoy that because they had such a cute love story. I'm not even kidding. So the next one on this list is None of This Is True by Lisa Joel. I do own this book. I have lent it out to my grandma though, because on Black Friday, my grandma and I went to the bookstore. We were just like picking up books. My sister was shopping, so like I was helping her pick out like a book for my brother and like putting out books that I like so she could pick something out for me. And my grandma was like browsing the shelves, and that's how she got my grandma's Christmas present, because she like pointed out a few books that she wanted. But one of them she pointed to was None of This Is True, and I had just finished reading it like a week or 2 before. So my copy is lent out to my grandma. So, but I loved None of This Is True. This was my first Lisa Joel, which I was told maybe don't start with this one, but like I started with this one anyways. It was so like twisty and turny, and like you didn't know who was telling the truth. Like, should you feel for her? Should you not feel for her? Should you feel for the other girl? Should you not feel for her? And it's like weaving, and it's a story of manipulation. And you really feel bad for our one main character during this, because you're like, oh my God, her husband is so bad. He groomed her. He's abusive. He's abusive to their children. And then like you weave it throughout, and like, oh my God. And then to come find out what is actually true, I was like, neither of the husbands are painted in a good light. Let's like just say it that way. And both of them are seen as like abusive in a sense and neglectful. And you gotta like find out the path. I'm like, it was, I read half of it in a day. And then we have on this was an early read for me in 2023. I have The Shallow Graves by Jennifer Donnelly. This is a YA historical. And in this one, we follow a young woman again in the early 1800s as she wants to be a reporter. But you know, women having jobs at this time period is frowned upon. Like, why do you have a job? You should be looking for a husband. And again, we have an upper class woman, so like, it's really unacceptable. You cannot be working, go find a husband and have kids. You know, like that's what she's supposed to be doing. But she wants to investigate, and she doesn't believe her father's murder is as what the coroner has said. So she takes off with this young man to investigate the murder. And then along the way, they find several other murders that were very suspicious. And in the end, she does get to be a bit of a reporter, you know? Good for her being independent. It just wasn't the time for independent women, but we gotta applaud the women who were standing up trying to be independent at the time. The next one I have on this list is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rulak, which I feel like was a very popular book. Yes, hello. Was a very popular book I think it was a really popular book in 2022, but I was on a wait list forever for it. But in this one, it is a bit of a horror thriller. There's a lot of interesting pictures, so I would really recommend either reading this one physically or on digital, because there are very interesting pictures, and I don't know how that would convey very well through audio. And they're very creepy pictures. But we have a young college student who is recovering from abusing drugs and using drugs, and she gets the job as a nanny and for this little boy, and something isn't quite right. And she tries to plead her case to the little boy's parents, but they're like, no, he's just like that, he's just special. And all these creepy pictures start coming up, and she thinks a ghost is communicating with her. And of course the parents just go, you're just using drugs again, and they fire her. But we gotta figure out, there's something not quite right. And then the next door neighbor ends up murdered. And we don't know it's necessarily a murder because the next door neighbor's a little out there, let's just say that, and would potentially be using drugs. So I gotta cover her eyes. Her and Shelby are gonna stare off right now. We're not gonna play stare off while you're in my lap. It hurts when you do that. And Hidden Pictures was a very, very creepy thriller. And I think if you're trying to be introduced to some horror elements from thrillers, this is a good one to start with, because there's some horror, but it's like not extreme horror. Like it's more of a edge on your seat. Like, and what is this? This is creepy. I think it would be a good place to start. I'm also a person who like watches horror videos all the time, so like a lot of things don't faze me that much. But this had me like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, oh my god, what is happening? Where are all these pictures coming from? What is wrong? Why is like little boy potentially drawing these pictures, but then she starts drawing these pictures, and it's like, what is happening? The next one I have on this list is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I do own a copy of this. However, I cannot go get it because I have a dog in my lap at the current moment. So say hello to everyone, Ellie. Can you show them your face? There, thank you. Oh, look, you got up. Oh no, you're coming back. You're like, why did you move me off your lap, Mom? Why'd you move? So in the Inheritance Games, we have another young girl who inherits something that she didn't know she was a part of, which apparently is a trend for 2023 that I liked. So we inherit a mansion potentially, but we have to play a game to find some keys. I actually received this one as a Christmas gift in 2022, so I was like, I have to read this before Christmas 2023, otherwise they're gonna ask me and be like. But I really did enjoy this one, and I'm excited to continue the series. However, I'm kind of waiting until the fourth one comes out in paperback, because I want all of them in paperback, because I like to read series back to back. It's just easier for my brain than taking like a break for a while. That's why I never have continued on with the Crescent City series, because like there are books still coming out. Also, I've been told you need to read ACOTAR. So I was like, well, I suppose I could do that while I'm waiting for the rest of Crescent City to come out, you know? You know, that would make sense. I could do that, I guess. And book 10 that I have on this list is The Grace Year by Kim Liggett. I really enjoyed this one. This was another one that had me like, what is happening? You know? Because in this one we have a bunch of girls who have to survive the year in the wilderness to get rid of their magic. I don't really know why we started doing this, but okay. What a weird little thing for them to do. And like these women, like these girls come out like mutilated, like they mutilate each other. Like what kind of society is doing this? Like what the hell? But there's like girls who are picked. There's like 10 or so girls that are picked as chosen ones for like brides. But then they have to go off into like survive this year in the woods. Apparently they're like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not an incubus. It's the female version of it. I can't remember what the term is right now. They can lure men from their bed and make them cheat on their wives, I guess. They have magic. They're like witches apparently, and they have to get rid of their magic. And once they return from getting rid of their magic, they can be married. I was like, okay then. But one girl realizes they don't have magic. There's like poison in the well we're drinking from, and it's making us crazy. But of course you can't convince, you know, 20 of the girls that were drinking poison water, so they just try to kill everyone. You know, it was very okay. There's also men that are like following these girls along the trail, and if like they fall behind and like going there, like the men can poach them, and they like cut pieces of them off to sell. It's like super weird. I'm like, oh, okay. What a normal society you guys have. But overall, it was very interesting, and our main character like goes off with one of the poachers for a little bit, and he like saves her, like tries to hide her. And it was like, wow, okay. But then she gets brought back to be like a wife of the one guy, but she's like come back pregnant because she's pregnant with the poacher's baby. And I'm like, oh, this is a very interesting society we have going on here. And the ending is pretty ambiguous, which ambiguous endings are hit or miss with me. If they're done well, they're great. If they're not done well, I'm like, what happened? So this one leaves you at the end like, what happened? And I really enjoyed it. It was like I haven't had a book do that in a while. You know, like, what happened? That was very interesting. But that encompasses my 10 top books of 2023. I'll see you guys next week with a new video. Bye!